Hello, today we're going to take a look at adding sounds into Excel. So first of all, let's just have a look at how you would do that in the most basic fashion, and then we'll look at a more working example based on the Wordle game we created previously. So to start with, let's go to the Developer tab and go into our code. I'm just going to add a new module to code this stuff in. Now, the one piece of code that we'll need to make this work, I'm going to paste this in, and this just lets us call this sndPlaySound32 Windows API function that is found in this Windows DLL file. So once we have this at the top of our code, we can now call this function any way we want to. So let's see how that would work. Let's just create a basic play the sound subroutine. So now to call the function, all we need to do is say call sound play 32. And as we open our brackets, we'll get the code tips on what we need to include here. The first argument is going to be the string of the actual sound. So this will be the file location of where that sound is held. Let's just put a blank string in for now. And then the second argument is this uFlag. I'm not going to go into too much detail for what this is. It's really to do with whether the sound plays synchronously or asynchronously. We're just going to use a 0. That's going to fit most purposes for playing sounds in Excel. So now we just need to find a sound to give to this function. These sounds have to be WAV files, so that'll be sound files with the file extension .wav. And the easiest ones you can use by default are the ones that are installed within Windows. So if we were to open up our Windows Explorer, and if we navigate into the Windows installation, so for most people that's going to be the C drive, Windows, and then into the media folder. As we look down here, you'll see there's a number of WAV files. And these are all just standard Windows installed sounds. So we can call any of these into that function. So there's one down here called ta-da. And the way that we can then reference that in here is going to be the C drive, Windows, media, and then ta-da.wav. So now if we run this function, we should get that sound. Now obviously you can point this to wherever you want it to be as long as the WAV sound is located in a certain location. One thing to touch upon here is that obviously not everyone will have Windows installed to the C drive or to their own C drive. So if you are using anything from this media folder, the best thing to use is instead of using C/Windows, we can use a function called environ. So let's just put this out into the immediate window. If we say debug environ and then say system root, that will give us where Windows is installed for the user. So rather than having this section here, we can replace this with our environ system root and add that onto the string with an ampersand. And now no matter where Windows is installed for this user, this will work. So if someone's got it installed on their D drive or their E drive or their Z drive, having this will pull that automatically for a Windows user. So now if we again try then play that, that still works fine. So let's take a look now at how we would use this with a working example, and we'll go back to our completed Wordle file and start to add in a sound for that. Okay, so here we are in our Wordle file. The way I've set this up is that I've created a new folder here with the Wordle sounds file, our Excel macro, and then I've added in 3 WAV files, a continue sound, a lose sound, and a win sound. So let's first of all come into here and let's add a new module. And just to keep this nice and clean, we'll call this sounds. And then let's add in that line of code so that we can use this sndPlaySound32 function. Now within here, let's now create a play sound subroutine that we can call, because what we want to happen here is that every time a guess is made, we play one of those sounds. Either we play the continue sound, we play the win sound if the game has been won, or we play the lose sound if the game has been lost. So if we call this play sound now, and what we need to give this is the status of the game. So we'll say, okay, we'll give the status as a string, and that status will be either continue, win, or lose, and that will match the name of the WAV file that we've got saved down in the folder. So to play the specific right sound that we want to, we're going to say, okay, let's call this sound function. And we know that those sounds are saved in the same place as the workbook. And for this to work, that will have to be the case. So what we can do to get the workbook address, we can say, okay, application.activeWorkbook.path. And then we can add on to that the status that we're being given. And we can add that it's a .wav file. And then the second argument is just going to be the 0, and we can close the brackets. So this will go to the folder that the file is in. It will take the name of the status that's been given, and it will play the equivalent WAV file. So let's try this out, and let's say, okay, let's play sound now for continue. That's the continue sound that we've got. And then let's try the lose. Not the best sounds, I know, but these are free. And then the win. Okay, so all of those work. One thing to note here is if this function takes in something that it can't find, so let's say wing, you'll get that Windows default sound. That's what will play for any sound if it can't find the thing that you've pointed to. So it won't throw an error, it will just give you that as a default sound. Okay, so let's now add this into the right place in our game code. If we go to our UI area, so the place that this needs to be entered is when the enter key is pressed, because that's when a guess is made in the game. So let's have a look down in this function, and you can see down here we get the game status. So we use our check game status function to pull the game status, and that will either be win, lose, or continue. So we've already got a way of getting the game status at the end of each guess. So all we need to do really is, once we've done everything we want to in terms of checking that guess and working out what status the game is in, we just need to call the playSoundNow event. And the argument that we can give it is just the game status. And let's just add a comment up here. One thing I am going to add just before this is the doEvents function. I find when playing sounds, this helps just to make sure that anything that's going on in the background is completed before the sound is played. So you've got a better chance of getting a clean playthrough of the sound. Okay, so let's test this out in the actual game. Let's start with my favourite word of audio. So when you press the enter key, it checks the word, it does everything it needs to, and it plays the continue sound. Alone. Let's try actor. So that seems to work well. We get the continue sound when we haven't got the right word. We get the win sound when we've completed the game. And then very quickly, let's just test out the lose sound. Okay, so for our final guess, we've got it wrong yet again. Let's just check that this works. Okay, perfect. Now, obviously, what you would probably want to do is on the settings page, we'd probably want to add an additional one of these little switches that would switch on and off the sounds. I'm not going to go through that here because we've gone through how to add those in a previous video, but just very high level, that would include on our calculations page, we'd have an extra yes, no for sounds. And then when it came to playing the relevant sound, we would just check that to see if it said yes or no. If it said yes, we'll play the sound. If it doesn't, we wouldn't. So pretty simple to put together. I'll leave that for you guys to add in if it's something you'd like to do. Okay, that's it for now. I hope that's helped. There's a link in the video description where you can get free access to this source file along with all the other source files for previous videos. And if you've got any questions or comments, please put them down below. I have been working on another project for quite a while, which I hope to share in the next week or so. So look out for that. I'll see you next time.